Whispers of war. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, an uneasy silence hung in the air. Representatives from a myriad of starfaring civilizations shifted nervously in their seats, their eyes darting between the human delegation and the imposing figure of the Zorgan Emperor, Cax. Lena Sandoval, the human diplomat, stood at the podium, her voice steady and resolute. The unprovoked attack on our colony at Epsilon Eridani cannot go unanswered. The Zorgan Empire must be held accountable for their actions. Cax's eyes narrowed, his scaled visage twisting into a sneer. The humans are weak and divided. They have no place in the Galactic Federation. We will do as we please. A murmur rippled through the council chamber. Many races had fallen victim to Zorgan aggression in the past, but few dared to challenge them openly. Lena, however, refused to be cowed. "We may be new to the galactic stage," she said, her gaze locked with Cax's, "but do not mistake our youth for weakness. Humanity will defend itself if provoked further. We will not back down." As the council erupted into a cacophony of heated debate, Lena stood firm, a beacon of human determination in the face of an uncertain future. The road ahead would be long and perilous, but she knew in her heart that humanity would rise to the challenge. They had to, for the sake of all they held dear. Deep in the heart of the Sol system, Admiral Finn McLean watched the newsfeed with a grim expression. The Zorgan attack had sent shockwaves through the human colonies, and the casualties were still being counted. "They think we're easy prey," he growled, his hands clenching into fists. "They think they can just waltz in and take what they want." Beside him, his second-in-command, Captain Nilla Singh, shook her head. "They underestimate us, sir. They always have." Finn nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Then it's time we show them what humans are made of. It's time we make them regret ever setting foot in our space." As the Admiral and his crew prepared for the battles to come, a sense of purpose filled the air. The Zorgans had picked a fight with the wrong species, and humanity would make sure they lived to regret it. In the depths of space, a Zorgan warship loomed, its hulking form bristling with advanced weaponry. On the bridge, Commander Vrax stood tall, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "The humans are weak," he hissed, his forked tongue darting out to taste the air. "They will fall before the might of the Zorgan Empire." His subordinates chittered in agreement, their clawed hands tapping eagerly at their consoles. The Zorgans had conquered countless worlds, and Earth would be no different. Little did they know that the humans were already preparing for war, their resolve hardening with each passing moment. The Zorgans may have had the advantage of superior technology and a ruthless, warlike culture, but the humans had something else, an unbreakable spirit and a fierce determination to protect their own. As the two sides readied themselves for the conflict to come, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see who would emerge victorious. One thing was certain, however, the humans would not go down without a fight. They would stand tall in the face of adversity, united in their resolve to defend their way of life. And so, as the whispers of war grew louder, humanity steeled itself for the challenges ahead, ready to face whatever the cosmos threw at them. The line is drawn. The Zorgan invasion came swiftly and without mercy. Their warships, sleek and deadly, tore through human space like a plague, leaving devastation in their wake. Colonies burned, and the screams of the dying echoed across the stars. Aboard the Zorgan flagship, Emperor Cax lounged on his throne, his eyes glinting with malice. "The humans are weak," he sneered, his claws tapping against the armrest. "They will fall before us like so many others." His generals nodded in agreement, their faces twisted into cruel smiles. The Zorgans had never met a race they couldn't conquer, and they saw no reason for the humans to be any different. But even as the Zorgans pressed their advantage, the humans refused to yield. Admiral Finn McLean, his face hardened with determination, rallied Earth's defense forces for a desperate stand against the invaders. "We may be outmatched," he said, his voice ringing out across the command center, "but we are not outclassed. We are human, and we will fight with everything we have." Under Finn's leadership, the human fleet launched a series of daring raids against the Zorgan supply lines, using their creativity and unconventional tactics to score early victories. Zorgan ships, caught off guard by the humans' ingenuity, fell before the onslaught, their hulls breached and their crews lost to the cold vacuum of space. On the ground, human soldiers fought with a ferocity that stunned their alien foes. They used the terrain to their advantage, luring Zorgan troops into ambushes and hit-and-run attacks. The Zorgans, used to conquering through sheer brute force, found themselves outmaneuvered and outfought at every turn. Back on Earth, Lena Sandoval worked tirelessly to secure aid from humanity's allies in the Galactic Federation. She pleaded for support, arguing that the Zorgan threat extended far beyond humanity's borders. "If the Zorgans succeed in conquering us," she warned, "they will not stop there. They will come for you next, and there will be no one left to stand in their way." Slowly, grudgingly, the other races began to listen. They had seen the Zorgans' cruelty firsthand, and they knew that Lena spoke the truth. One by one, they pledged their support, promising ships, weapons, and troops to aid in the fight against the invaders. As the tide of war began to turn, Emperor Cax's rage grew. He had not expected the humans to put up such a fierce resistance, and he would not tolerate their defiance any longer. "Unleash the dreadnoughts," he snarled, his eyes burning with hate. "Crush the humans beneath our heel. Show them the true might of the Zorgan Empire." The dreadnoughts, massive warships bristling with the most advanced weaponry the Zorgans had ever created, surged forward, their shields shimmering with barely contained power. The human fleet, already battered and bruised from weeks of fighting, braced for impact, knowing that this would be their greatest challenge yet. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Finn McLean stood tall, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen. He knew that the odds were against them, but he also knew that the humans would never back down. They would fight to the last, with every ounce of strength and courage they possessed. "This is our moment," he said, his voice steady and sure. "This is where we draw the line. This is where we show the galaxy what humanity is made of." As the Zorgan dreadnoughts closed in, the human fleet prepared for the battle of their lives. They had come too far to turn back now, and they would not let the sacrifices of their fallen comrades be in vain. The line had been drawn, and the humans would defend it to the end. They would stand tall in the face of annihilation, united in their resolve to protect their way of life. And even if they fell, they would do so with honor, knowing that they had fought with everything they had. The tide turns. The Zorgan dreadnoughts tore through human defenses like a hot knife through butter. Their shields, impervious to all but the most powerful of human weapons, shimmered with an eerie green light as they advanced, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Finn McLean gritted his teeth as another volley of Zorgan fire rocked the ship. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. "Damage report," he barked, his eyes never leaving the viewscreen. "Shields at 20%, came the reply, the officer's voice strained with fear and exhaustion. "We can't take much more of this, sir." Finn's jaw tightened. He knew that the humans were outmatched, but he refused to give up. Not now, not ever. "Concentrate all fire on the lead dreadnought," he ordered, his voice steady and sure. "We'll take these bastards down one at a time if we have to." But even as the human fleet poured everything they had into the attack, the Zorgans kept coming. Their ships, seemingly invulnerable, shrugged off the humans' desperate assault, their weapons cutting through hull and shield alike with terrifying ease. In the depths of the human flagship, Science Officer Kira Vasquez worked feverishly to analyze the captured Zorgan technology. She knew that their only hope lay in finding a weakness, some chink in the aliens' armor that they could exploit. "There has to be something," she muttered, her eyes darting across the screen. "No technology is perfect. There's always a flaw." But as the hours ticked by and the Zorgan advance continued unchecked, Kira began to despair. The Zorgon tech was unlike anything she had ever seen before, and every avenue of investigation seemed to lead to a dead end. On the Zorgon flagship, Emperor Cax watched the battle unfold with a cruel smile. He had underestimated the humans' tenacity, but in the end, it would make no difference. The Zorgon Empire was unstoppable, and the humans would fall before their might like so many others had before. "Show no mercy," he hissed, his eyes glinting with malice. "Crush them beneath our heel. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy us." The Zorgon fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing with deadly intent. Human ships exploded in balls of flame, their crews consumed by the merciless vacuum of space. The once proud human defenses crumbled, and the Zorgons pressed their advantage, driving the humans back towards Earth with relentless ferocity. On the surface of humanity's homeworld, panic gripped the population. The news of the Zorgons' advance had spread like wildfire, and billions huddled in terror, waiting for the end to come. But even in their darkest hour, the humans refused to surrender. They had come too far, fought too hard, to give up now. They would stand tall in the face of annihilation, united in their determination to protect their home and their way of life. In the halls of the Galactic Council, Lena Sandoval pleaded for aid from humanity's allies. She knew that the humans could not stand alone against the might of the Zorgon Empire, and she begged for support, for ships and weapons, and troops to turn the tide of the war. But the other races, cowed by the Zorgons' display of power, hesitated. They had seen what the Zorgons could do, and they feared that if they intervened, they would be next. As the Zorgon fleet closed in on Earth, the humans prepared for their final stand. They had fought with everything they had, but it seemed that it would not be enough. The Zorgons were too strong, too relentless, and the humans were running out of time. But even as all seemed lost, a glimmer of hope remained. In the depths of the human flagship, Kira Vasquez's eyes widened as a sudden realization struck her. She had found it at last. The flaw in the Zorgon tech, the weakness they had been searching for. "Admiral," she shouted, her voice trembling with excitement. "I think I know how to stop them." Darkest hour. The Zorgon bombardment of Earth was relentless. The once blue skies turned an ashen gray as the alien ships pounded the planet's surface with a barrage of plasma and laser fire. Cities crumbled, and the screams of the dying echoed across the ruined landscape. In the heart of the chaos, Admiral Finn McLean stood on the bridge of his flagship, his face grim and his eyes haunted. He had seen too much death, too much destruction, and the weight of it all threatened to crush him. But even in the darkest hour, he refused to give up. The humans had come too far to surrender now, and he would fight to the last breath to protect his home and his people. "Status report," he barked, his voice rough with exhaustion and grief. "Earth's defenses are failing, sir," came the reply, the officer's voice trembling with fear. "The Zorgons have breached the outer perimeter. They're closing in on the major population centers." Finn's jaw tightened. He had known this moment would come, but that didn't make it any easier to face. The Zorgons were too strong, too relentless, and the humans were running out of options. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm him, a flicker of hope stirred in his chest. He had one last card to play, one final gambit that might just turn the tide of the war. "Prepare the fleet for a counterattack," he ordered, his voice steady and sure. "We're going to hit the Zorgons where it hurts." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances, but they knew better than to question their admiral's orders. They had followed him this far, and they would follow him to the end. As the human fleet prepared for their last, desperate assault, Science Officer Kira Vasquez worked feverishly to refine her plan. She had found a weakness in the Zorgon shields, a tiny flaw that could be exploited to bring down their defenses. But the window of opportunity was narrow, and the risks were high. If they failed, the Zorgons would crush them utterly, and Earth would be lost. "We have to try," she said, her voice trembling with determination. "It's our only chance." Finn nodded grimly. He knew that Kira was right, but the thought of what lay ahead filled him with a sense of dread. They were about to embark on a mission from which there might be no return, a desperate gamble that could either save humanity or seal its doom. But there was no turning back now. The fate of the planet, of the entire human race, rested on their shoulders. As the fleet prepared to launch, Lena Sandoval made one final plea to the Galactic Council. She knew that the humans could not stand alone, that they needed the support of their allies if they were to have any hope of victory. But the other races, still cowed by the Zorgans' display of power, hesitated. They had seen the destruction wrought upon Earth, and they feared that if they intervened, they would suffer the same fate. In the end, it was a single voice that broke the silence. A representative from a small, unassuming race stepped forward, his eyes blazing with determination. "We cannot stand idly by while the Zorgans slaughter our allies," he said, his voice ringing out across the council chamber. "We must stand together, or we will fall alone." Slowly, grudgingly, the other races began to nod in agreement. They had seen the courage of the humans, the way they had fought against impossible odds, and they knew that they could not abandon them now. As the Galactic Council pledged their support, Lena felt a surge of hope. The humans were no longer alone, and with the might of the galaxy at their back, they might just have a chance. But even as the Allies mobilized their forces, the Zorgans pressed their advantage. They had the humans on the ropes, and they would not rest until Earth was nothing more than a smoldering ruin. On the surface of the planet, the last pockets of resistance fought with grim determination. They knew that they were outnumbered and outgunned, but they refused to surrender. They would fight to the last, with every ounce of strength and courage they possessed. And so, as the final battle loomed, the humans steeled themselves for the fight of their lives. They had come too far to turn back now, and they would not let the sacrifices of their fallen comrades be in vain. The darkest hour had come, but even in the face of annihilation, the humans refused to yield. They would stand tall, united in their resolve, and they would fight until the bitter end. For they were human, and they would never surrender. The turning point. As the human fleet prepared for their final desperate assault on the Zorgan invaders, Science Officer Kira Vasquez put the finishing touches on her plan. She had discovered a weakness in the Zorgan shields, a tiny flaw that could be exploited to bring down their defenses. But the window of opportunity was narrow, and the risks were high. "We have one shot at this," she said, her voice tight with tension. "We have one shot at this," she said, her voice tight with tension. "If we fail, it's all over." Admiral Finn McLean nodded grimly. He knew the stakes, but he also knew that they had no choice. The Zorgans were closing in on Earth, and if they didn't act now, humanity would be lost. "Then we'd better make it count," he said, his jaw set with determination. "Transmit the virus on my mark." As the human fleet closed in on the Zorgan ships, Kira's fingers flew across her console, inputting the final commands. The virus, a complex piece of code designed to overwhelm the Zorgan shields, was ready to be deployed. But even as they prepared to strike, the Zorgans unleashed a devastating salvo of their own. The human ships rocked under the onslaught, their hulls buckling and their crews screaming in terror. On the bridge of the flagship, Finn gritted his teeth as another explosion sent sparks flying across the room. They were taking heavy damage, and he knew that they couldn't hold out much longer. "Now, Kira," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of battle. "Deploy the virus." Kira's hand hesitated for the briefest of moments, the weight of the moment threatening to overwhelm her. But then, with a deep breath and a final, decisive keystroke, she sent the virus hurtling towards the Zorgan fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. The Zorgan ships continued their relentless assault, their weapons pounding the human fleet with merciless fury. But then, slowly at first, but with growing speed, the Zorgan shields began to flicker and die. "It's working," Kira cried, her voice trembling with relief and excitement. "Their defenses are down." Finn wasted no time. With a roar of triumph, He ordered the human fleet to open fire, pouring everything they had into the exposed Zorgan ships. Lasers and missiles streaked through the void, slamming into the alien vessels with devastating force. The Zorgans, caught off guard by the sudden reversal, reeled under the onslaught. Their ships, once invulnerable, now lay exposed and vulnerable, easy prey for the human weapons. One by one, the Zorgan warships fell, their hulls shattered, and their crews consumed by the merciless vacuum of space. The tide of battle had turned, and the humans pressed their advantage, driving the aliens back with a ferocity born of desperation and hope. On the surface of Earth, the news of the human victory spread like wildfire. The people, huddled in their shelters and bunkers, emerged to the sight of Zorgan ships falling from the sky like shooting stars. They cheered and wept with relief, their hearts swelling with pride and gratitude for the brave men and women who had saved them from annihilation. In the heart of the Zorgan flagship, Emperor Cax watched the destruction of his fleet with a mixture of rage and disbelief. He had been so close, so tantalizingly close to crushing the humans once and for all. But now, his dreams of conquest lay in ruins, shattered by a foe he had once dismissed as weak and insignificant. "Retreat," he snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "Withdraw all forces. We will regroup and return, stronger than ever." But even as the Zorgan ships limped away from Earth, their hulls battered and their crews demoralized, the humans knew that the war was far from over. The Zorgans would be back, and they would not rest until humanity was ground beneath their heel. But for now, in this moment of triumph and relief, the humans could savor their victory. They had stood tall in the face of annihilation, united in their resolve, and they had emerged victorious. The turning point had come, and humanity had seized it with both hands. They had proven to the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated, that they would fight with everything they had to protect their home and their way of life. And as the ships of the Galactic Federation arrived to reinforce the human fleet, Lena Sandoval felt a surge of hope and pride. The humans had stood alone against the might of the Zorgan Empire, but now they stood shoulder to shoulder with the other races of the galaxy, united in their determination to bring an end to the Zorgan threat once and for all. The road ahead would be long and perilous, but the humans had shown that they were ready for the challenge. They had proven their worth, and they would not rest until the galaxy was safe from the scourge of Zorgan aggression. For they were human, and they would never back down. Humans victorious. In the aftermath of the great battle for Earth, the Zorgan fleet limped back to their own space, battered and broken. Their once mighty warships, the pride of their empire, now lay in ruins, shattered by the tenacity and ingenuity of the human defenders. On the bridge of his flagship, Emperor Cax seethed with rage and humiliation. He had underestimated the humans, dismissed them as weak and primitive, and now he had paid the price for his arrogance. But even as the Zorgans licked their wounds, the humans and their allies pressed their advantage. The Galactic Federation, united in their determination to bring an end to Zorgan aggression, launched a massive counteroffensive, striking deep into enemy territory. Led by the indomitable Admiral Finn McLean and the brilliant science officer Hira Vasquez, the Allied fleet tore through Zorgan defenses like a hot knife through butter. The virus that had brought down the Zorgan shields proved to be a devastating weapon, and the aliens found themselves outmatched and outfought at every turn. On the diplomatic front, Lena Sandoval worked tirelessly to rally the other races of the galaxy to the human cause. She spoke with passion and conviction, reminding them of the sacrifices the humans had made and the courage they had shown in the face of overwhelming odds. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. The Zorgans, once the scourge of the galaxy, found themselves beaten back on every front, their empire crumbling around them. In a final desperate gamble, Emperor Cax launched a massive assault on the heart of the Galactic Federation, hoping to shatter the alliance and regain the upper hand. But the humans and their allies were ready for him. In a battle that would echo through the ages, the Allied fleet met the Zorgans head-on, pitting their strength and courage against the might of the alien war machine. Ships clashed in a maelstrom of fire and fury, and the void was lit by the flashes of 1,000 exploding suns. But in the end, it was the humans who emerged victorious. Led by the indomitable spirit of Admiral McLean and the brilliant tactics of Science Officer Vasquez, they broke the back of the Zorgan fleet and sent the survivors fleeing in disarray. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the true scope of the human triumph became clear. The Zorgan Empire, once the terror of the galaxy, lay in ruins, its ships shattered, and its armies scattered to the winds. In the halls of the Galactic Council, Lena Sandoval stood tall and proud, her voice ringing out with the conviction of a people who had fought for their very survival and emerged stronger than ever. "The Zorgan threat is ended," she declared, her eyes shining with the light of victory. "But let this be a lesson to all who would seek to subjugate and oppress the peoples of the galaxy. The humans have shown that we will not be cowed, that we will fight with everything we have to defend our way of life and the lives of those we hold dear." As the council erupted in cheers and applause, Finn McLean and Kira Vasquez stood side by side, their faces lined with the weariness of battle, but their eyes alight with the fire of triumph. "We did it," Kira whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "We really did it." Finn nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "We did," he agreed. "But the work is not over. There will be other threats, other challenges to face, but we will meet them head-on, united in our strength and our resolve." And as the ships of the Allied fleet returned to their homes, the people of Earth and the peoples of the galaxy celebrated their victory. They had faced the greatest threat they had ever known, and they had emerged stronger, more united, and more determined than ever. The humans had proven themselves to the galaxy, and they had ushered in a new era of peace and prosperity. And though the road ahead would be long and the challenges many, they knew that they would face them together, armed with the courage and tenacity that had carried them through their darkest hour. For they were human, and they had shown the galaxy the true meaning of strength, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of a people who would never surrender. The end.